Hello! I thought it might be fun to do a video on my top 6 favorite and least favorite Gen 1 Pokemon. Pokemon Blue was my very first Pokemon game, and Pokemon Yellow was my second, so I have in some cases very deep fondness or distaste for some of the Generation 1 Pokemon. However, I will do my best to keep things brief. The Pokemon that you see right now are the 4 runner-ups to each list, or the honorable mentions, if you will. Without further ado, let's get started. I'm starting with the Pokemon that I dislike so that I can end on a positive note. While I'm using a Magmar on my current playthrough of Pokemon Blue on the 3DS, I've always found Magmar to be kind of ugly, and I don't really like Magby nor Magmortar. I think it is cool as a late-game fire Pokemon, and I think it is interesting that it can learn some poison attacks, but that is about it. Vileplume is one of my favorite grass types and poison types. Rafflesias are my favorite flowering plants, and one of my favorite plants in general, and I think Vileplume is a really cool example of one. I always love the sound it makes in Pokemon Stadium. Also, because Oddish is my wife's favorite Pokemon and Vileplume is basically an adult Oddish, Vileplume always reminds me of my wife whenever I see it. I have dabbled in using Vileplume before back in Gen 3, but I look forward to using a Vileplume as a permanent member of my team in my new playthrough of Pokemon Silver on the 3DS. Golbat is one of the most annoying Pokemon in the franchise. Its design is much uglier than Zubats and Crobats, but the real problem is how incredibly common Golbat are, how fast they are, and how difficult it is to run away from them. They are the biggest reason why late-game dungeons like Victory Road are a chore to walk through. I always seem to be training at least one Pokemon that is weak to poison or flying attacks, and Golbat is so fast that even Pokemon that are not weak to it wind up taking damage that builds up over several battles and or get poisoned, so I wind up wasting my items a lot on Golbat. I've used Crobat twice as a member of my team, once in Pokemon Sapphire and once in Pokemon Alpha Sapphire, so I have trained a Golbat before, and it is pretty decent. My main memory of a Golbat, though, was the shiny one that I encountered in Pokemon Silver while I was at an airport. The sprite looked so similar to that of a regular Golbat that I just instinctually ran away and didn't realize until it was too late that I had come across a shiny Pokemon. Charmeleon is kind of interesting. As a Bulbasaur and Squirtle fan, I originally didn't care much for Charmeleon, especially because of how Ash's Charmeleon was portrayed in the anime. Hunched over and feral looking, it just wasn't really for me. All that changed with the new artwork of Charmeleon in Generation 3 and the new design for it in sprites starting with Generation 4. It now has a more cocky look to its face and a more upright posture, and it has become one of my #1 favorite Pokemon to draw fan art of. I used the Charmander for the first time 5 years ago in a playthrough of Pokemon Blue, and it has overall been a great time. For all the praise that the generation gets, Gen 1 is full of mediocre, forgettable Pokemon, and Tangela is a great example of that. The McDonald's character has the honor of being the only pure grass type in Gen 1, but it is such a bad Pokemon that you'd never use it in Gen 1 over a different grass type. Worse, this thing only appears in one route in the game. An optional route, no less, that isn't accessible until near the very end of the game when you are far past the point that Tangela would ever be useful. I think Tangrowth is pretty cool and a much needed addition to this evolution line, but Tangela itself continues to be one of my most frequently forgotten Pokemon to this day. Oh man, I love this guy. I've used the Grandmaster Clefable on my team twice, once in Pokemon Platinum and once in Pokemon Blue on the 3DS. Can't get enough of it, it's great. That cheeky smile, those Charlie Brown eyes, the way it waggles its finger all the time, the way it doesn't give a fuck about its fat-ass body and just frolics all over the place, the fact that it is an alien from outer space. And my friend likes to use one in Pokemon Sun, which always presents me with the fun challenge of figuring out how to take the damn thing down. And its abilities are great. And Lusamine uses a badass one on her team. There's so much to love about Clefable. The only problem is that I'm bad at drawing them. Clefable's great. I love it more every generation. Ugly Ass Seaking is the worst of the many, many water types in Gen 1. The one thing it has going for it is the interesting ability to learn the HM move Waterfall through leveling up before Waterfall was even introduced as an HM. But that is not enough to save this Pokemon from being forgettable, mediocre, uninspiring, and shockingly ugly given its pre-evolution Goldeen. It is the crown example of a throwaway Gen 1 water type, and I have little more to say about it. Sometimes being forgettable and mediocre is worse than being actively hateable, because at least it is fun to hate on Pokemon that make you unhappy. Seaking provides little if any joy due to being one of the most outright bland Pokemon to this date. So far, my favorite Gen 1 Pokemon have all been ones that I grew to like more and more since first meeting them back in Pokemon Blue and the Pokemon anime. However, I had to have had other Pokemon that were my favorites at the time back then, and this is one of them. Abra used to be my #1 favorite Pokemon. Its design is fantastic, the concept is great, the evolutions are cool, and the name is solid. It had one of my favorite episodes in the first season of the anime, where it came off as a very intimidating Pokemon despite its sleepy habits. When I was a kid, I always thought myself really clever for recognizing that you can teach Abra a number of different TMs, whereas most people I figured thought it could only learn Teleport. However, since then, my fondness of Abra has been slowly fading. A large part of that is because I feel it has looked less and less cool in the games. For example, I hate how it now floats all the time, and it's a bit too bright of a yellow for my tastes. But for the time being, Abra is still near and dear to my heart. Primeape is just so ugly. I can't get past it. It is ugly, it's a brute, and it sounds gross in the English dub of the anime. I actually did train one up as a backup fighter in Pokemon Moon because I kind of like Mankey, but Primeape itself just is nothing for me, and I honestly find its design repulsive. And where the heck are its fingers and toes? What a horrible waste of an ape design in Gen 1. Fortunately, later Pokemon based on non-human primates are so much cooler, like Infernape and Oranguru. Overall, I liked quite a few of the fighting Pokemon from Gen 1, but Primeape is really bottom of the barrel. That's all I have to say about it. Incidentally, if you were wondering, Wartortle is not on this list, but ranks pretty low for Gen 1 Pokemon. Anyway, although I used Squirtle on my first playthrough of Pokemon Blue, my best memories of the game are of my second playthrough, in which I started with Bulbasaur, and of the Bulbasaur line, Ivysaur has been my favorite ever since I laid eyes on its bipedal sprite in the game. I think it strikes a better balance between cool and tough in its design than Bulbasaur and Venusaur, and because it isn't fully evolved, it can learn powerful attacks sooner than Venusaur can, which is useful in the game. I was really pleased to see Ivysaur show up in Super Smash Bros. Brawl, as it lets me actually use one of my favorite Pokemon in the game instead of the other choices who I quite like, but who I definitely don't like as much as Ivysaur. As a paleontology nerd, I also have been quite fond of Bulbapedia's hypothesis that Ivysaur is based on a basal synapsid, or an early mammal for the non-specialists in the room. In fact, I take things a step further, and I think the Bulbasaur line might be based on the sail-backed synapsids from the Permian period, such as Edaphosaurus and Dimetrodon, just replacing the sail with a plant. Anyway, like Abra, Ivysaur is another Pokemon who I've been slowly liking less and less, but I'm still a big fan, and it is my favorite of the Gen 1 starters, even though Charmeleon is more fun to draw. The weird thing about Poliwag is that when I haven't seen it for a while and see the updated Fire Red and Leaf Green artwork of it, I think to myself that it doesn't seem so bad. But it always comes back and hits me when I actually encounter it in a game or look at other artwork of it, just how much I don't care for Poliwag. Primeape has a leg up on it because despite its ugly appearance it has some value in battle, but Poliwag just does nothing for me and isn't even fun to hate on. There's something about its design, particularly in the Gen 1 sprites and the 3D models for it in Gen 6 and 7, that really puts me off. It also bothers me that you fight tons of Poliwags and Polyrolls in Gen 1, but can't even actually catch them until the second half of the game when you finally get the good rod. It's like they are constantly mocking you that Gen 1 has a massive drought of water Pokemon throughout the first half of the game, especially if you don't start with Squirtle and don't use the Trainer Fly glitch. Anyway, it may seem like a weird pick, but Poliwag is my least favorite Gen 1 Pokemon. Vaporeon is my favorite Gen 1 Pokemon and my favorite Pokemon in general, although it has tough competition from later generations. It has the best design out of any of the evolutions, and I die inside a little every time I pick an evolution other than Vaporeon to be on my team. The last time I used a Vaporeon was in Pokemon Leaf Green, but that was in tandem with a Blastoise and an Omastar. I'm really looking forward to Pokemon Ultra Sun, because I'll finally have an opportunity again to make Vaporeon my main Water-type member of my team. I think Vaporeon has a great moveset, and I particularly think Acid Armor is cool because Vaporeon can actually turn into nothing but water. It must feel really weird to do that to yourself, but be able to put your molecules back together in a pool of water. I also really like that Vaporeon, unlike some of its contemporaries like Flareon, false prophet, has great stats and can actually make great use of them in battle. I cannot wait to use this Pokemon again. The way they combined a Rayfind fish, a dolphin, and a carnivorous mammal into one single animal is such a fantastic design, and I love it every time I see it, even though, for whatever reason, Vaporeon does not always get the best TCG artwork or fan artwork. Those are just a few reasons why the Bubble Jet Pokemon is my favorite Pokemon from Gen 1. Those are my top 6 favorite and least favorite Pokemon introduced in Pokemon Red, Pokemon Green, Pokemon Blue, and Pokemon Yellow. I like the generation a lot, but when figuring out my list, I did find that for all the good Gen 1 Pokemon, there are a lot, and I mean a lot, of forgettable throwaway Pokemon that pad out the Pokédex, particularly in the final third of the Pokédex for Kanto. If I have time, I would like to do a similar video like this for the other Pokemon generations. Thank you very much for watching. If you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up, and if you have any suggestions to improve my list videos, or if you'd like to share your favorite or least favorite Gen 1 Pokemon, please leave a comment below. Thanks again for watching, and have a wonderful rest of the day.